talking about a band called La Dispute and their first released album, Somewhere at the Bottom of the River Between Vega and Altair. Probably many of you don't really like their style of music, and it's also quite hard to put that band into a genre. So in this vlog I want to focus a little bit on the lyrics of that album and how they use reoccurring images to draw connections between, within, but also beyond the different songs of that album. If you look at their whole discography, you can really follow this pattern of referencing on their own work over and over again. So the deeper you dive into their poetic way of storytelling within the songs, the more you get aware of the different plot lines that evolve throughout their work. So you can really join the frontman of the band, Jordan Dreyer, on his multi-layered process of dealing with memories, emotional up and downs, self-reflection, and eventually some kind of a personal development.
I think I saw you in my dreams. You were stitching up the seams on every mangled promise that you're putting in deep. I think I saw you in my sleep.
Let us quickly pause here and look at the title first. There's a legend telling the story of the two stars Vega and Altair. Vega was the immortal princess of the sky, and she fell in love with the mortal guy Altair. So she made the promise to him to take him up to the sky with her. Well, her father, the king of the sky, was not that much amused. Still, he gave in and allowed her to fulfill her promise, so they both became stars. However, they were still separated even though they made it to the sky. Separated actually by the so-called celestial river. We know it as the Milky Way today. The river between Vega and Altair. Each year on the 7th night of the 7th moon, a bridge of stars forms across the river so Altair can travel over to his lover. So it's kind of like a far distant relationship, and yep, they are quite hard to handle. So sometimes Altair's annual trip is too dangerous and he doesn't quite make it. And then it's Vega's tears that fall down on the earth as rain. Now obviously the band La Dispute refers to the stories with images used in the lyrics of their album. But also they spin the story a little bit further, talking about what actually is on the bottom of the river. The river actually stands for an affair, as we will discover. Here's an example from the album's second song called Set the King to the River, which kind of sets up the metaphorical toolbox for the whole album.
Rise, set the king to the river. Never let up to bring us some fun and bring it on. Breeze, set the wind to the water. Never give in, no build us a bridge.
So obviously the relationship between Vega and Altair at that point is already endangered by the rising flood of an affair. In the next song, one has to confess to the other that he cheated. And I love this one so much because this is now super explicit. It feels like we're really there in the moment, listening to their dialogue, almost like in a movie also. And, well, they're having a fight. As time goes by with the songs, Dreyer starts to think about what happened earlier in the album. Now it all becomes a little bit more metaphorical, a little bit more figurative, and I think Dreyer does that to show to us that he's starting to reflect a little bit. He's starting to put things in a context. It's 3 years now since the two partners, they broke up and they meet again, talking about what happened in the meanwhile.
You came back and you brought floods, wearing a necklace made of hearts that you dragged through the mud.
Flood here stands for love affairs again. The hearts stand for the different affairs he had in the meanwhile. So she's just become one of many. So it's kind of a multi-layering, interconnecting use of metaphors here. I love that. In another song again, he moves the perspective very much outwards. We're looking at the whole initial affair, the story that we heard about in the beginning, again, but in a very distanted and in a way more metaphorical way.
He could not break apart the waves to bring her safely back in. He watched her hand break through the surface once, then disappear again.
So only by that he uses the images that he introduced in the beginning of flood and waves and rain and the river washing everything apart, that way we only know he's actually talking about a toxic relationship or toxic love rather than actual people drowning.
Your hands still catch the light the right way, and our hearts still beat the same.
The last song talks about that the pain still remains as scars, however they are washed away by the rain. We remember the rain, that's the teardrops of the two lovers in the initial story about the stars. So time passes, some memories vividly stay, however the heart still beat the same, so life goes on.